Hi everyone, this is Ryan with rockthedivine.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to my latest video. Last year I did a true scary story I had around Halloween and I had so much fun with it. I thought I'd do another one. As a medium, I have a lot of scary stories. Most of them have actually happened from before I was a medium, when I didn't know what was going on. I want to say that in my spiritual business, I really take pride in educating people, removing the mystery and myths surrounding the unknown, and I love teaching people how to protect their energy and feel empowered. But doesn't mean I don't like a scary story. I think some innocent, spooky stories to excite the senses are fun. So I'm going to tell you another one today. This isn't a very long video, but for me, it's something that happened to me that really stood out. So sit back, relax, and prepare to get spooked. So I'm going to take you back to 20 years ago. I was living in my home state of Pennsylvania, and I was dating someone that I had gone to high school with. I'm going to leave out his name because he did not agree to have his name in this video. Well, I didn't ask him, but anyway. And we were just going to refer to him as my boyfriend. Okay. So 20 years ago, I would often stay with my boyfriend. He was living with his friend in what we call a half a double. So that's two houses connected. The house that they were living in was older, but I don't think it was really that old. I think it was maybe built in the 30s or 40s. And it sort of had like a Victorian appearance to it with a very large wraparound porch. Often I would go there throughout the week or on the weekends and spend the night when I didn't want to stay in my house. There was these little things that started happening, and none of them were severe enough to really freak me out. It was things like hearing things or the inside of the house being old and having no windows on one side because it was a half a double. It just made the house very dark. It had a lot of dark wood in it. So stuff like that sort of freaks you out anyway, just because it looks haunted. The little things that would happen, like the noises, there'd also be just sort of this sense that you were being watched. And I had expressed that to my boyfriend a few times, but what do you say to that? Nothing's happened. And I also like to watch scary stuff, so it's no big surprise that I'm like, oh, something's watching me. I'm scared to go down the hallway. The first thing that I can remember happening was waking up in the middle of the night and feeling like I couldn't talk. And I would feel that someone had their hand on my head and was pushing down. So I couldn't even lift my head. And I would try to turn to my boyfriend to get him to wake up, and I just couldn't even talk. It was like someone was just holding me down and also controlling my vocal cords in some way. And that was very unnerving. It was like it seemed like a form of sleep paralysis, but I didn't know at the time what sleep paralysis was. And what was weird about this is my eyes were wide open, like I was fully awake. I was looking around the room, and all of a sudden it would just release, and I would be able to pop up and wake him up and say this happened and that happened, and he'd say, you're just having a dream, go back to sleep. It happened quite a bit. And I remember always thinking when I stayed there before I would go to bed, I thought, God, I hope this doesn't happen again. And a lot of times it would. It was only it seemed like a long time, but it was probably just a few seconds. But you could always guarantee that something felt like it was just pushing my head down, like right here. So that was one of the first things. Then the other things that I remember happening would be sometimes I would wake up, and because of the job I had, I didn't always need to go to work throughout the week. My boyfriend would go off to work and I would sleep in because, I was young and God knows what I was doing the night before. I would wake up and look around the room, and I would see what looked like a mist of smoke, very gray smoke. But it was very faint, almost transparent. And at the time I was a smoker, so I think in my head I was reasoning and like, oh, is there still smoke in the room? Even though I hadn't smoked since the night before. And I would stare at this mist for a long time, and then it would just sort of dissipate. That happened quite a bit. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't thick enough or obvious enough for me to really be sure of what I was seeing, because I know a lot of people are thinking, well, you saw a mist of smoke, why the hell didn't you get going? With your head, you start reasoning things or thinking, well, I didn't see that, or it was so faint and light. Maybe it was just cigarette smoke. But it would often form what looked like, I guess, a column, sort of. Like, it wasn't smoke that was dissipated all over. It was very up and down like this. The next thing I remember happening is sometimes my boyfriend's roommate would come home early in the morning if he didn't want to work or was feeling sick or whatever. And by sick, I mean didn't want to work. And I would be laying in bed and I would hear the door open, the bedroom door I was in, the door open just a little. And I assumed that the roommate was looking in to see if I was there. Then I would hear him go down the hall to his room. I would turn back and look, and I'd see that the door was ajar just a few inches. Finally, I'd get out of bed, get going for the day, and when I would look around for the roommate, he wasn't there. And I would come to find out later that all the times that I thought that he was coming home and coming up the stairs and peeking and looking at me and then going down the hall to his bedroom, he had not come home. So then I started getting real freaked out. And what I started making sure of is that I would not stay there by myself. So if in the morning, if my boyfriend got up to leave to go to work, I got up too, even if I didn't have to go to work, and I'd go back to my mom's house. So the next thing I remember is that my boyfriend and I one night were up in his room hanging out watching TV, and we started talking about scary stories and if ghosts were real and things that have happened to us over the years. His bedroom door was shut, and as we're having this conversation, all of a sudden we hear a click. The door opens and just slowly opens all the way. And we looked, and you'd think at this moment most people would have ran out, but us, we were like, oh wow, that's crazy, that's cool, like wonder what happened. Got up, he shut the door, we continued our conversation. As we're talking about ghosts and spirits and what just happened, you hear the door again, click, and it opened. And I don't mean opened a little, I mean from close all the way back to the wall, opened, this time with a little more force. Well, now we're freaked out. We're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? If there's really a ghost in here, is that what's been holding my head down at night? And the next thing I remember, because we were home alone, mind you, is the stereo downstairs turns on. And it starts playing Pink Floyd's Is There Anyone Out There? Is anybody out there? Sorry, not a Pink Floyd fan, but you know what song I'm talking about. That scared us. We actually ran down the stairs together. He pulled the plug out of the wall so the stereo would unplug. We ran out the door. We stayed outside until his roommate came home, and then that's what we told him. We told him what happened. Of course, the roommate's thinking that we're nuts and whatever, and it's nothing and what have you. And finally, after being very freaked out, we go back in. We finish our evening hanging out downstairs, go upstairs to go to bed, nothing happens, life goes on. A few weeks after that happened, the next thing I remember, and it was the last thing I remember, because I don't think I went there much after this. One night I had gotten done hanging out with some friends of mine, and I had told my boyfriend I would be back to his place later in the evening because I didn't want to go home to my mom's. So he said, I'll leave the door unlocked for you because I might be asleep. So it was late. It was like 11 or midnight, something like that. And I pull up and all the lights are off, and I thought, oh God, they are asleep. I go in the front door and it's locked. I start pounding and pounding and pounding on the door. And there's neighbors all around, so I can't yell or anything because I'll have some angry people yelling at me. And they're just not waking up no matter what I do. I'm knocking, knocking, pounding on the door. And it's late, and I remember thinking I didn't want to go back to my mom's because I was sort of this transition where she didn't like me coming in really late, even though I was definitely old enough to do so. I was still living in her house, and I didn't want to deal with her. So I decided to go around the back of the house. And I had never, there's a kitchen door that was on the back of the house that led outside. I had never gone in or out of this door, but I thought, knowing those guys, maybe they left it unlocked. So I go around the back of the house, and I remember that it was really bright out. So even though it was dark, there was no clouds, and I could see very clearly around me. I try the kitchen door, and it's locked. So then I think, well, at this point now I'm going to have to go back home. And I look to my right, and I see a cellar door. One of the ones that it opens like this from the ground, and then you walk down into the cellar to the basement. And I think, what's the chance that that's open? And, thinking now, I would never have done this now, but it shows when you're 19, 20 years old, like the things you'll do, So anyway, I go over to the cellar door, and I pull up the big metal doors, and they're open. And I walk down the stairs, and there's the door leading into the basement. And I try it, and it opens. And I remember actually my first thought was, like, you idiots, your basement door's open. Like, people could have been getting in, breaking in. I wonder if they ever knew it was open. Like, all these things are going through my mind. So I go in the basement door, and I close it behind me. I cannot express how dark it was in the basement. It was the darkest room I think I've ever been in. I literally could not see my hand in front of my face. And I'm not just saying that, I actually tried. Like, I went like this, and I could see nothing. And I thought, okay, I'm in here, like, oh God, this is creepy, So I'd only been in the basement a few times, and I knew from where I was at that the stairs would be off to the right. So I thought, if I can just make my way through the room and stay to the right, I will find the stairs. So I start walking forward very, very weirdly slowly because, like I said, I cannot see. So if there's a laundry basket in front of me or something else, I can't see it. I start walking through the dark, and it felt to me this whole time like something was right here. I mean, I just felt like something was going to kiss me. It was so close. And as that's going through my mind, I'm also realizing, like, you're just afraid because it's so dark and you can't see. You're being a child. It's just a basement. Like, these opposing things are going through my head. And what seemed like it was taking forever to cross this basement floor. Again, the whole time there was just something right here. I could just energetically feel that something was right with me, like every move. Suddenly I see this little tiny light far off in the corner. And I realize what I'm looking at is the pilot light on the furnace. And I think, okay, that's at the bottom of the stairs. I think I just will follow that light. What was weird about the furnace light too is that it wasn't lighting up anything. It just seemed to be this one little light that wasn't lighting up anything around it. But I thought, I know where that's at. I'm just going to follow that. So I kept making my way to this furnace light so slowly. And again, something is just right there. Finally, I make it to the furnace light, which I know is at the bottom of the stairs. I start to go up the stairs. I can feel them with my feet, and I'm sort of taking my time. I have my hand on the wall now, and I'm making my way up the stairs. Now something feels like it's here, and I'm just like, just dying inside. I'm like, this was such a bad idea. I am so mad at myself for doing this, but I've made it this far. I'm almost safe. I start making my way up the stairs, and I get to the top, and in the crack of the door, you can see that there was a kitchen light over the sink, those little, fluorescent lights you'd put on it in old homes. The light's on and shining, and I can see that their cat is walking in front of the door. It can hear me, and it's rubbing up against the door, and I'm talking to it. I get up to the top. I go to unlock the door, or I go to open the door, and it's locked. And I just wanted to die. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I've made it this far. What took me it felt like 5 hours to cross that floor downstairs. I'm pretty sure that there's something lurking down there going to get me. And then I make it up here, and this door is locked. And I'm just like, I keep trying it. And out of desperation, I start pounding on it. I think, okay, I'm in the house. Those guys will hear me, and they will come get me, because I am sure as hell not going back down through the basement. This goes on a while. I'm pounding, I'm knocking, and the whole time I just feel like something's behind me. I don't know how long I tried, but I tried long enough that I realized nothing was going to wake them up. If they didn't hear a woman downstairs pounding loudly and yelling, they were never going to hear me. So with all my might, I turn around to go back down the stairs, and I think, this took me so long the first time, it's really going to take me long the second time. I get to the bottom of the stairs. I look at the pilot light on the furnace, and I realize that's the last time I'm going to see anything lit up at all. I start making my way through the basement, again, painfully slowly. And I wanted to run, but when you can't see, like when it is just black and you can't even see your hand in front of your face, you can't run, because God knows what you'll run into. The whole time, something's right here now on this side, and I'm making my way, and I feel, and I can still feel it, like as I'm walking, it's like something's just with me and with me. Somehow I make it back to the door, and I open it, I get out of it, I close it behind me, and I run up those steps. And the moon and the stars were so bright, it felt like a light being turned on in a room. I just thought, oh my God, I made it out. Anyway, I go to my car, I get my car, and I leave. And the whole time, I'm irate at myself. I'm like, what were you thinking? What were you doing walking through a basement? Yada, yada. Fast forward to the next day. I go to my boyfriend's house, and I am mad at him. I'm like, I came here, and you locked the door, and you told me it'd be unlocked. And he's apologizing. He said that his roommate must have locked it, forgetting that I was coming home, and then they fell asleep. He was surprised that they didn't wake up when I was pounding on the door, but I finally told him, I said, I actually made my way into the house. And I said, you guys have the basement door, the cellar door is unlocked. I actually got in the cellar door, got all the way up to the top of the basement door in the kitchen, and it was locked, and I couldn't get in, so I had to go home. And I remember just saying, like, you got to lock that door, like a homeless person could get in, or, someone trying to rob you, what have you. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts, like annoyed almost. And he says, there's no way. There's no way. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no way? This and this and this and this is what happened. He said, there's no way. That cellar door is locked. We've never unlocked it. I said, no, I was in the basement. I even saw the pilot light, walked up the stairs, scared myself, almost tripped on bags of laundry. He's like, come with me. I could tell the look on his face. He really doesn't believe me. We go down the stairs. We go all the way over to the cellar door, and it's locked. And he said, we have never unlocked this. Like, we've never had a reason to go out here. We haven't been living here that long. It's locked. And I'm looking, and the damn thing is locked. So I'm like, well, I don't get it. I made my way in. And I said, and maybe I locked it on my way out. I started like questioning all these things, or maybe it locked itself on its way out. I don't know. Then he says to me, there's also no way you made it in this door and then wouldn't be able to get out of the top door. Takes me to the top door that was locked, that I couldn't get past, that the cat was walking under. And he says, there's no lock on this door. It can't lock. I don't believe him. I'm like, this door was locked. I was pushing and turning the knob and pounding on it, and it would not open. He actually leaves me in the kitchen, puts himself on the other side of the door, shuts it, turns it open. He's like, see, it doesn't even stick. And he showed me, he's like, there's no lock. And there was no lock on the door. So, to this day, I don't know what let me in that basement, but I do know that something wouldn't let me out. Happy Halloween, babes.